That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The British Constitution provides that taxation and representation shall go together. Therefore, women taxpayers are entitled to vote.
I have a dream today. Let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true.
Hello and welcome to episode 23 of Only Human. Today's episode is called How to Fall Out of Love in 5 Easy Steps. So we're going to finish our 3-part series on workmanship, but it's in a little bit of an odd way, which is kind of the way we like to do things here. I promised you last time that we we're going to talk about attention to detail, and we are. We're going to come at it, though, from what many of you might consider to be an odd angle. We're going to talk about love, or perhaps better said, how we fall out of love and what that means when we think about attention to detail. You see, attention to detail is easy for things that we care a lot about, things that we're passionate about, things that we love, things that we don't love, things that we dislike or even hate, don't get the same focus. They don't get the same passion. But there's some things we can do about that. And that's what today's podcast is all about. So let's begin with a look at how we typically fall out of love with someone or something. And it tends to happen in 5 easy steps. Let's start with a personal example, perhaps with a spouse or a loved one. And it begins with a simple statement, a simple event. And you say to yourself, oh, I hate it when she does that. That's the first step. The second step is a little more illogical, but it's natural. Second step is, she always does that. The third one progresses to, she'll always be doing that. The fourth step is where it really gets dangerous. I can do better. And then the natural fifth step is, I deserve better. So again, the 5 steps. I hate it when she does that. She'll always do that. It'll continue in the future. I can do better. I deserve better. So let's think about this for a second. This flow of thinking, which is natural, is like some sort of parasitic psychological worm that gets into our head, and it burrows deeper and deeper into the way we think and feel about someone or something. We move from being momentarily angry into a persistent state of negativity. And then we lose the critical ability to focus on the things that we might be able to do to make it better. Which brings us to our blue threat proverb of the week. It's one we used early on last season, but it's well worth revisiting. It's a blue threat proverb number 9, and it says, it's hard to fight an enemy that has outposts in your head. And when we talk about this psychological worm that drills in when something makes us angry, and then we think it's always going to make us angry and it's never going to change, and the only thing we can do is remove ourselves from the situation. It's really a dangerous thing, right? It's really a dangerous thing. So, and it's difficult to fight. So back to our blue threat proverb, it's hard to fight an enemy that has an outpost in your head. And today that enemy is that cynicism that seeps in and evolves from a single momentary moment of anger into something much, much worse. So let's take a job version of the same 5 steps, all right? How do we fall out of love with our job in 5 easy steps? I hate it when this happens. This always happens around here. This will always happen as long as I'm here. Damn it, I can do better somewhere else. I deserve better. So we end up not caring about our current performance because deep inside, we've already checked out. Let's even make it smaller about some aspect of our work, right? Maybe it's some mundane thing. And it goes like this. I hate this part of my job. The work I'm doing right now is trivial and meaningless. It's beneath me. It doesn't deserve my full attention. I'll always be doing this crap if I stay here. I deserve better. How to fall out of love in 5 easy steps at the personal, the job-related, and the task-related levels. Here's the deal. Attention to detail requires focus and energy. And this energy comes from passion and purpose, but it's also destroyed by negative passion. Let's look at a single phrase from our last example to see what we can do to change our mindset just a little bit here. So remember that line where we said on the task, the work I'm doing right now is trivial and meaningless. The words you heard the loudest, the ones that our emotional focus is on, gravitates naturally to those words trivial and meaningless. They're loaded words that fuel our frustration, right? Feeds the worm. They become the outposts in our head that the blue thread proverb talked about. But what if we focused on the first 4 words of that statement? The work I'm doing. Forget the trivial and meaningless part for a second. Let's just focus on the work I'm doing. This simple act of mental agility changes everything. By putting the focus on work I'm doing, it brings us back to the capstone of workmanship. High quality, error-free work in everything we do. Big or small, critical or trivial. If we are doing it, it gets done right. Every step, every time. Attention to detail. This is worm-killing stuff here, right? So back to that. The work I'm doing right now is trivial and meaningless. Just focus on work I'm doing. If it's done by me, if it's got my signature on it, it's going to be high quality, error-free, because I'm going to pay attention to that. So it's intriguing to me to think about how much such a small shift in perspective can have such a profound impact on our attitude toward our work. Oh, by the way, in our relationships and ultimately our life, which is what this podcast is all about. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this concept and explore the 5 steps to fall out of love in detail. And more importantly, how we can counteract each one of these steps to reignite our passion in the correct form, not anger, but love, reapply dedication and attention to detail in everything we do, big or small. And we're going to do all that in just 1 minute, right after a word from our sponsor.
Have you ever finished the latest bestseller on habits or personal performance and asked, yeah, okay, but how? All the improvements you visualize while reading the books require one thing to achieve in your own life: deliberate practice, a new way of focusing attention inside the routine to drive consistent improvement with every experience. Focused on getting the biggest impact from your career development opportunities, the Deliberate Practice of Professionalism course from Convergent Performance teaches you the steps and requirements to achieve improvement and mastery of your targets. Discover how deliberate practice can springboard your improvement efforts, no matter what they might be or your current skill level. Join us on our website at convergentperformance.com and click the link for e-learning to sign up for this exciting program today.
Okay, let's look at step 1, and I'm going to bounce around from the personal one to the job-related one to the task-related one. So I'm going to start with the personal one. Step 1, remember, I hate it when she does that. Now, this first thought is the seed. Very small, but just has lots of potential to grow into something unmanageable. Kind of like that 4-foot-tall thistle growing in the back corner of my pasture. Man, it's a beast now. I wish I would have got it when it was smaller. The key to countering this first step is to practice gratitude and thankfulness for the things about the person or task that we don't hate. Instead of focusing exclusively on the thing that irritates us, we should try to think about the things we appreciate about our partner, about our job, or about the task at hand. It's about changing the narrative in our heads from negative to positive. And man, if we can kill the worm early, it's a whole lot easier than after it gets burrowed in deep. For example, if your partner's got a habit that irritates you, try to think of 2 or 3 things that they do that you really like, right? It doesn't erase the irritation of what they're doing to irritate you, but it does help balance your perspective and keep one annoyance from overshadowing the entire relationship. It keeps that worm from digging deeper into your brain and then driving your emotions toward the negative with everything. Okay? So that's how we counteract step 1, which is the best place to counteract it. Excuse me for a second. Step 2. It always happens around here. This is the generalization trap, right? Classic logic flaw. Something happens a couple times and you go, it's always that way, right? One bad thing happens and suddenly it's always. The antidote for this step is to challenge the truth of those statements. Ask yourself, does it really always happen or are you exaggerating? Look for counterexamples, instances where it didn't happen or when the outcome was positive. And this will help you break that cycle of negative generalizations and once again, bring a more balanced view of the situation. At least it stops the worm from digging deeper at that point. Step 3. It's always going to happen as long as I'm here. Right? Let's say that again. It's always going to happen as long as I'm here. This step introduces the whole concept of hopelessness. Nothing I can do, man. This is always going to happen. Only thing I can do is get my butt out of here. It's probably the most significant factor in how we fall out of love with any aspect of our life. So to counter this, rather than say this is always going to happen, it's essential to focus on things we can control. Instead of dwelling on the inevitability of a situation, think about what actions, big and small, you might take to affect some change here. Because even small changes can make a big difference on how we perceive our control over our environment, right? The ability to impact things. It gives us power and it restores a sense of action and defeats that feeling of hopelessness and helplessness. All right, on to step 4. I can do better than this. Kind of a two-headed coin here. It's pretty healthy to recognize your worth and your potential, but this thought can become really harmful if it leads us to consistently look outside of the current situation for happiness, right? You are where you are. We are here in the moment. So to counter this, right, to counter this idea that, man, I got to pull a geographical here. I got to leave this, whatever it is, and I got to move somewhere else. To counter this, invest in the present. Instead of dreaming about a better future somewhere else, think about what you can do to improve your situation right now, right here. Right? How can you bring more of yourself into your work, your relationship, your daily task right now, in the present moment, in this space? This investment can transform even the most mundane things into something powerful. All right, the last step, and it's kind of an important one for us to discuss. Step 5, if you remember, of the 5 ways you fall out of love, 5 steps to fall out of love, is I deserve better. It's all about a sense of entitlement, right? It's what you deserve. And entitlement inevitably leads to dissatisfaction. And while it's true that we all deserve respect for what we do, it's also true that the best things in life, the things that we feel the most proud of, are often the result of hard work, overcoming obstacles, and dedication to our cause. Maybe it's our marriage, maybe it's our friendships, maybe it's our job, and maybe it's the task that we're working on. Here's a cold, hard truth. What you deserve is what you earn. And so to counter the I deserve better trap, here's a couple of things you might try. First is to prove to yourself to the level that no one can ignore how good you are, right? Be relentless in your pursuit of excellence on things big and small, trivial and important. Go the extra mile. People will notice eventually. The octane booster to take this path is to simultaneously practice humility, right? It's not look at me, how great I am. It's I'm doing great work, and that's enough. Right? There's no one more impressive than a high achiever toiling in obscurity who still does outstanding work and doesn't care if anybody notices. Trust me, people are noticing, and it will pay off eventually. Now, I told this story last season. I hesitate to tell it again, but I'll keep it a short version. Back in my military career, I was a line pilot, flying KC-135s, or refueling tankers, young captain, charging up the ladder, wanted to fly, upgrade to instructor pilot, be a commander someday. And one day my squadron commander called me into his office and said, Tony, I need to put you in scheduling for a year. You won't be flying much. We'll keep you current, one approach and landing every 45 days. But if you hunker down for a year in there, I know it's off the fast track, but we'd really appreciate it. We've kind of already made the decision. Be up at the scheduling office next week. Man, that was a gut punch. But you know what? I dug into it, and I became the best damn scheduler you could possibly be. I revised the Excel spreadsheets and the flow things and got out in front by a month, and paperwork improved. And as my 1 year came to a close, my new boss, the director of operations, said, you've been so impressive with the administrative work that we've decided that you're the perfect guy to rewrite all the operating instructions as McConnell Air Force Base transfers from just being a KC-135 base to bringing in the new B-1 bomber. So I know it's a crappy job, Tony, but we've decided you're the guy for it. You're not going to be flying at all now, but we've got a little office for you, and there's only 200 of these operating instructions you need to rewrite. Please do a good job for us. I know you will. Thanks. Now I'm really off the fast track, and right, and my office was actually a closet, no windows. They had to bring in an extension cord from the outside because there wasn't any plugs. I actually called it my closet office. Get it? So I worked. I said, whatever, man. I went to work. I came in early. I stayed late. I did the best damn operating instructions anybody ever seen, at least in my mind. But no one cared, right? Until one day they did. I had a gentleman arrive from Strategic Air Command headquarters. He came in, he offered to buy me lunch and said, you know what, I know you don't think anybody's noticing, but these are really good. You're doing great work. We're ahead of the timeline. And I just wanted to take you to lunch and say thanks. While we're at that lunch, this guy told me about the B-1 bomber and asked me if I ever thought about applying to fly it. Long story short, I applied. I'm pretty sure he put his finger on the scale. I got selected in a highly competitive type thing. I was back flying, got back into what I wanted to do, instructor pilot, stand eval, all that stuff. It would have been easy for me to quit. It would have been easy for me to leave the Air Force. It would have been easy for me to not pay attention to detail in the work I was doing. And it sounds like I'm not being humble. Looking back on it 25, 30 years later, I still feel the humility of being in that room, thinking that no one would ever know what I was doing, but that I did. And that if I was going to do something, no matter how angry I was about it, I was going to give it my best shot. So the moral of that story is you never know who's watching. And even if nobody's watching, you're honing your integrity and you're holding the line against a host of psychological demons who prey on people who feel angry or underappreciated. So I guess to bring this all to some sort of closure, falling out of love with someone or something is easy if you don't see that worm burrowing into your head. It's not just an inevitability, right? It's a process that we can understand, that we can challenge, and that we can ultimately reverse. You know, by doing the things we talked about, practicing gratitude, challenging our negative generalizations, focusing on the things that we can control, and investing in the present moment, practicing humility, we can reignite our passion and our dedication. And this not only improves our ability to do quality work, but it enriches our relationships and it gives us an overall sense of authentic self-esteem, which leads to our happiness. You know what else it does? It builds our legacy. It builds trust, and it builds resolve. These are big things, all the result of taking a new attitude toward workmanship. So remember, attention to detail is not just about the task at hand. It's about how we choose to see it and engage with it in the world around us, in every task, big or small. We have the opportunity to bring our best selves to the table. And that will not only transform our work, but also our relationships and our lives in the process. Well, that's a wrap on episode 23 and our short 3-part series on workmanship. I hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope you found something useful within it. As always, please keep the feedback coming and continue to share what we're doing here and encourage people to tune in and follow our podcast. You know, no matter what situation you find yourself in, keep getting better. I'll see you again next week.